Black Rhino versus White Rhino. Who would win? The rhino is one of the most unique animals on the planet today. Everyone knows one from even just a quick glance. That gigantic body, the extremely thick skin, the horns, they're beautiful, majestic, and if you get too close, don't forget, dangerous. And if you head to Africa, you can see two different kinds of rhinos, black rhinos and white rhinos. So if you had to put your money down, black rhino versus a white rhino, who do you think would win? Which rhino has the upper hand? And why is it that you should never mess with a rhino? To start, did you know that there are 5 different kinds of rhinos in the world? Rhinos in general are endangered, and a few of the species are critically endangered. 2 of the critically endangered species live in Asia, the Sumatran rhino and the Javan rhino. Both have populations of under 100. There is one other Asian rhino, the greater one-horned rhino found in India and Nepal. But the 2 that we are talking about today are the 2 species of rhino that live in Africa, the black rhino and the white rhino. Here's a common misconception about them. They aren't actually black and white, they're both grey. Granted, the white rhino does seem to usually be a lighter shade of grey than the black rhino. Many don't believe that is the reasoning for their names. When you look at a black rhino, they have a pointy upper lip. White rhinos have wide, square lips. And so it is believed that since the Afrikaans word for wide is wid, and that was used to name and detail the rhino, it was mistaken by early English settlers as the word white. So they named those rhinos white rhinos, and then to differentiate, the others became black rhinos. Both black rhinos and white rhinos can be found in South Africa, Botswana, Kenya, Namibia, Swatini, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. The one country that white rhinos exist that black rhinos do not is Uganda. And the 2 countries that black rhinos live and white rhinos do not are Tanzania and Malawi. So this duel won't take place in any of those countries. We don't want either species to have an unfair advantage, but we have 7 countries where they do overlap, but we need to learn a little bit more about each rhino first. Black rhinos. The black rhino has been around for a long time, and its ancestors hail from so long ago. Both the black rhino and white rhino evolved from the common ancestral species called Ceratotherium neumari, which were present in Africa during the late Miocene period, about 10 million years ago. In the present day, we have the black rhino, a 2-horned rhino. Of the 5 species of rhino alive today, 3 of them have 2 horns. An adult black rhino stands about 52 to 72 inches tall at the shoulder. Just imagine that. They're typically 9 to 12 feet in length, and plenty have been recorded over 12 feet in length. And the adults usually weigh between 1,700 to 3,000 pounds. These are gigantic animals. Some males have been recorded at unusually heavy weights, clocking in at 6,000 pounds. But for the sake of our argument, we'll stick with an average 6 foot tall, 12 foot long, 3,000 pound black rhino. The horns on black rhinos are made of keratin, the same thing our fingernails are made out of. The horn in the front will be longer and will usually be about 20 inches long. The longest recorded horn on a black rhino was over 4.5 feet. The horns can be used to dig up roots and break apart branches as the rhinos are eating. They're also used for intimidation purposes, and if an opponent still ignores the warning, the horn is then used as a defense. Black rhinos have an excellent sense of smell, especially used for detecting predators or any other incoming rhinos looking to battle. Their hearing is great as they have a fairly wide rotational range in order to detect sounds, and their eyesight is fairly good, comparable to that of a rabbit's. And black rhinos can be a bit nervous in temperament, which can lead to them becoming aggressive. If they sense a threat, they can be provoked to charge quite easily, and you don't want to be in the path of a charging rhino, let alone a black rhino. The black rhino is the fastest of all rhinos, able to reach speeds of 34 miles per hour. No human could outrun that. But enough about the black rhinos, what about their competitors? White rhinos. Just like the black rhino, the white rhino evolved from Ceratotherium neimari in the late Miocene period. The white rhino is another two-horned rhino, and though they're related and at a quick glance they look quite similar, there are many differences between the two. There is the fact that the black rhino has a pointed upper lip, which it uses for browsing and eating plants and leaves higher up, whereas the white rhino has square lips and is just a grazer of grass. That probably won't come into play too much if the two squared off against each other. White rhinos stand at 5.6 to 6.1 feet tall at the shoulder, and they will generally be between 12.1 to 13.1 feet in length, and their weight is just tremendous, usually ranging between 4,400 to 5,100 pounds. But sometimes they can even clock in as much as 7,900 pounds. The white rhino is the largest of all the 5 rhino species alive today. It is also the 4th largest terrestrial mammal in the world. Only the 3 extant species of elephant surpass the white rhino in size. The horns are also made of keratin, and the front one will always be longer, averaging around 24 inches long. Like the black rhino, the white rhino has decent vision. Some will declare that their vision is poor due to the fact that they can't see an animal if it is completely still at about 100 feet away. But within that distance, their vision is fine. Then again, it doesn't have to be great. They have excellent hearing and a superb sense of smell. Their ears can move around independently in order to pick up sounds, and they rely heavily on that brilliant sense of smell. The white rhino has olfactory passages that are larger than their entire brain, and they also have the widest set of nostrils of any land-based animal. Translation: they can smell you coming from a mile away. Now, unlike the black rhino, the white rhino is more gregarious and calm. They are not as nervous and quick to charge as a black rhino. If they perceive a threat, they'll often turn and run the other way. And a white rhino can hit speeds of 31 miles per hour when they run. Not the fastest rhino out there, but faster than any human. You better hope the white rhino is running away from you and not towards. After a profile of each, are we ready to watch them go toe-to-toe? Black and white. These two species have their distinct differences, and we can spot some advantages to each. Now, we mentioned the white rhino was the largest species of rhino, so we know right away that the white rhino has the size advantage. If we take the tops of all the averages, then we have the white rhino dwarfing the black rhino. The white rhino weighs 5,100 pounds, the black rhino weighs 3,000 pounds. We know from watching boxers, a notable size advantage will sway the advantage in their way. If a white rhino and black rhino were sparring, the white rhino would be able to throw its weight around and use its size to dominate the black rhino. Not to mention its horn will be even longer and stronger, 24 inches versus just 20 inches. But before you declare the white rhino the winner, there is a disclaimer. 2 of them, in fact. We mentioned the white rhino is more calm and black rhinos become aggressive much more easily. So if the two faced off and they perceived each other as a threat, there is a good chance the white rhino would not engage and would run the other way. However, the black rhino would probably also run, but towards the white rhino. Now you have a fleeing white rhino and a charging black rhino. And which was faster? That's right, the black rhino is the fastest rhino alive. In this scenario, if the white rhino continues to flee, the black rhino could catch up to it, and while the white rhino is in an exposed and vulnerable position, the black rhino could pounce. With rhinos, their weight, their strength, their sharp horns, all it takes is one good strike. The opponent could be hurt, incapacitated, caught off guard, you name it, and then from there the attacker would have the advantage. Most things point to the white rhino likely winning in a battle between the two, but most things point to the white rhino not attempting to engage, and the black rhino being more than ready to engage, thus giving it an advantage. It is a battle that would likely depend on how it began, because the beginning would tell us everything. The one thing we can be absolutely certain of is that you don't want to be standing in the path of either rhino, because you would lose every time.